Most real estate deals do not fall apart at the closing table. They fall apart weeks earlier, in the details nobody bothered to check. And that is the uncomfortable truth about due diligence. Because in real estate, profit and disaster can look almost identical at first. Same address, same photos, same polished listing, same seller saying, "It's a great property." But one buyer sees an opportunity. Another inherits a headache with a roof leak, a lien, an HOA problem, and a stack of costs that never showed up in the original math. That difference usually comes down to one thing. What did you verify before you signed? So today, we're talking about real estate due diligence, what it is, when it happens, what smart buyers actually look for, and why skipping it can turn a promising deal into an expensive lesson. And this matters because due diligence is not paperwork for paperwork's sake. It is protection, it is leverage, and in many cases, it is the one window you get to find the truth before the property becomes your problem. Let's start with the basics. Due diligence in real estate is the process of researching a property before finalizing a real estate transaction to ensure it meets expectations. Simple enough. But let's make it even simpler. Due diligence is risk management. It is the process of slowing down long enough to ask, what am I really buying here? Not just the house, not just the land, not just the projected return. The condition, the legal status, the hidden costs, the restrictions, the surprises. I find that after all these years, this is where professionals separate themselves from amateurs. Because amateurs fall in love with the deal. Professionals investigate it. The primary purpose of due diligence is risk mitigation to avoid inheriting expensive, unforeseen repair costs and to ensure the investment aligns with buyers' financial objectives. That last part matters, because a property can be perfectly fine and still be wrong for you. Wrong for your timeline, wrong for your financing, wrong for your intended use, wrong for the numbers you need it to produce. So due diligence is not just about asking, is there a problem? It is also asking, does this property actually fit the plan? Now, when does all of this happen? Usually, the clock starts moving fast the moment the deal is accepted. The due diligence period typically starts as soon as the buyer and seller accept the purchase and sale agreement and the buyer has made a deposit. And once that window opens, you do not have the luxury of drifting through it. The due diligence period typically lasts between 30 to 90 days in real estate transactions. That sounds like plenty of time until you start lining up inspectors, requesting documents, reviewing disclosures, checking title, verifying insurance, and trying to make sense of everything before your contingency periods expire. And in some markets, that window is even tighter. In Texas, the due diligence period is typically 7 to 10 days and is known as the option period. 7 to 10 days. That is not a lot of time to discover what you missed. So one of the biggest mistakes buyers make is treating due diligence like a casual review period. It is not. It is an active investigation, a deadline-driven one. So far, here's what we know. Due diligence is your chance to test the story of the property against reality. And once that period ends, your leverage usually starts to shrink. Let's talk about what belongs inside that investigation. First, the physical condition of the property. This is non-negotiable. A home inspection is a visual analysis of a home's mechanical and physical features that can identify potential issues. That means you are not just admiring the kitchen finishes or checking whether the staging looks nice. You are asking harder questions. What shape is the roof in? How old is the HVAC? Are there plumbing issues? Are there electrical concerns? Are there structural signs that suggest movement, damage, or deferred maintenance? Because behind a fresh coat of paint can be a very old problem. Professional inspections should assess structural integrity, roof, plumbing, electrical systems, and environmental hazards such as asbestos and radon. This is where real buyers get grounded. The property stops being an idea and becomes a system with components, risk points, and possible costs attached. And that is useful even when the news is bad, especially when the news is bad. Because bad news discovered before closing is information. Bad news discovered after closing is expense. Next comes valuation. What is this property actually worth? A home appraisal is performed by a third-party credentialed professional who evaluates the market value of a home based on various factors. Now, this is where emotion can distort judgment. Sellers price based on hope. Buyers sometimes offer based on urgency. Markets can move. Competition can create pressure. But value still matters. Not what you want the property to be worth, not what it could be worth in a best-case scenario, what it supports today based on market evidence. And if the appraisal comes in low, that is not just an inconvenience. It is a signal. It may affect financing. It may force renegotiation. It may expose the fact that the deal only worked on paper if everyone agreed to pretend. Then there is legal ownership. This is one of those quiet categories that can become very loud if ignored. A title search is conducted to find any hidden liens, pending lawsuits, or claims on the property that the seller may not have disclosed. Think about that for a second. You can love the property, like the numbers, feel good about the inspection, and still walk into a legal mess if title is not clean. Liens, claims, ownership disputes, unresolved issues attached to the property, not the personality of the seller. And this matters because you are not just buying square footage, you are buying whatever legal baggage is tied to it unless it is properly uncovered and resolved. Then there are boundaries, which sounds boring right up until it is not. A land survey locates and maps boundaries, features, corners, and improvements on a specific piece of land or lot. For investors, developers, and even ordinary buyers, this can be critical. Where exactly does the lot line sit? Is that fence actually on the property? Was that addition built where it should have been? Are there encroachments, easements, access issues? A survey turns assumptions into facts, and in real estate, assumptions are expensive. Now let's move into the category that catches a lot of people off guard: rules, restrictions, and hidden costs. Start with disclosures. Sellers are generally required to disclose information about a property in a written document called a disclosure statement. That document matters, not because it tells you everything, but because it may tell you enough to know where to look next. Water intrusion, past repairs, known defects, previous issues. You read disclosures carefully not to check a box, but to spot patterns, gaps, evasive language, things that deserve a follow-up question. Then there's the HOA. Homeowners associations, HOAs, enforce rules and regulations that homeowners must follow, which can affect property use and modifications. And this is where buyers can get surprised in very practical ways. Can you rent the property? Can you make exterior changes? Are there special assessments coming? Are reserves healthy? Are there ongoing disputes in the community? Because a property may look like an asset until a layer of rules limits how you can use it. And that brings us to zoning. Zoning ordinances and rules describe allowable uses for a property within a specific community, which can impact a buyer's decision. This is huge for anyone thinking beyond simple occupancy. Maybe you plan to renovate. Maybe you plan to add units. Maybe you plan to operate a business from the site. Maybe you assume future flexibility. Zoning is where some of those assumptions either survive or die. And then there are the ongoing costs, the recurring numbers that determine whether the deal actually works after the excitement wears off. Buyers should estimate the cost of utilities, which can vary based on the size of the house and its systems. Utilities, maintenance, association fees, taxes, insurance, repairs, upkeep. This is where inexperienced buyers sometimes focus on purchase price and ignore operating reality. But the property does not care what your budget hoped for. It costs what it costs to own. And on insurance. Homeowners insurance is typically required by lenders before financing a purchase, although it is not legally mandated for all buyers. That means insurance is not some last-minute administrative detail. It is part of the feasibility of the deal. Can you get coverage? What will it cost? Are there location-specific risks that change the premium dramatically? This matters because a deal that barely works before insurance may stop working after a real quote comes in. So what should buyers actually be doing during this period? During the due diligence period, buyers should gather all necessary documents and information about the property to make an informed decision. That is the heartbeat of the whole process. Gather, review, verify, decide. And yes, there is action involved. During the due diligence period, buyers are responsible for ordering and scheduling standard inspections. Not the seller, not the market, not luck, the buyer. Which means due diligence rewards people who are organized, responsive, and willing to ask inconvenient questions. This is not a passive stage in the transaction. It is where the smartest work happens. So far, we've learned this. Due diligence is not about killing deals. It is about qualifying them. A strong deal can survive scrutiny. A weak one hopes you never look closely. And here is why all of this work matters so much. Because due diligence is not just research, it is leverage. Due diligence allows buyers to request repairs, negotiate price reductions, or cancel the sale without losing their earnest money deposit if major issues arise. That sentence right there is power. If inspections reveal problems, you may renegotiate. If title reveals issues, you may pause or walk. If costs come in higher than expected, you may rework the numbers. If the story changes, your response can change too. That is what leverage looks like in a real estate transaction. Information before commitment. And the reverse is also true. When buyers skip due diligence or rush through it, they are often surrendering leverage before they even understand what they needed it for. Now let's talk about what happens if you skip it. This is where the tone changes because the consequences are real. Skipping due diligence can lead to significant financial losses for buyers. And not small theoretical ones. Real money, real repairs, real legal exposure, real regret. Buyers are responsible for settling any unpaid taxes, liens, lawsuits, and repairs as soon as they take possession of the property if due diligence is skipped. That is the part people underestimate. Ownership does not arrive alone. Sometimes it arrives carrying a bill. And once the deal is done, your options get a lot more limited. Without conducting due diligence, buyers cannot retroactively hold the seller responsible for any property issues that arise after the purchase. In other words, after closing, "I didn't know" is not much of a strategy. So what are the red flags? What should make you stop, look closer, and ask another question? Here's one strong example. Buyers are warned to be alert to signs such as fresh paint hiding water damage or missing documentation for renovations, which may indicate deeper issues. Fresh paint in the wrong place, a remodel with no permits, an addition with no paperwork, systems that look patched instead of repaired, documents that should exist but somehow do not. These are not always deal breakers, but they are signals. And experienced buyers pay attention to signals because the goal is not paranoia. The goal is clarity. So let's bring this home. Due diligence is the disciplined act of finding out what is true before the consequences belong to you. It is how you protect your capital, how you protect your timeline, how you protect your margin for error, and, maybe most importantly, how you protect yourself from buying a problem disguised as an opportunity. This matters because in business, and especially in real estate, the expensive mistakes are often the ones made in a hurry. The skipped inspection, the unread disclosure, the assumption that everything is probably fine. Probably fine is not a strategy. Verification is. So if you are evaluating a property now, here is the takeaway. Slow down enough to inspect what matters. Ask for the documents. Read the fine print. Check the title. Understand the rules. Run the real numbers. And treat the due diligence window like what it is. Your best chance to make a smart decision before the deal becomes permanent. Because the best real estate investors are not the ones who get lucky. They are the ones who get clear. And clarity in this business is worth a lot.